number one, I just wanted to say how the heck we got here, right? Thanks to people like you in the room. We had seen enough and said enough is enough when it comes to our rights being totally infringed and trampled upon by people who have no privilege in any founding document to take away our rights, to rescind them, to infringe them, to encumber them, to attach them, and to ultimately treat them like a privilege, because that's what's been happening for decades in the state of Massachusetts. Our rights have been treated like a privilege that is granted by people in the halls of the State House instead of granted by our Creator, which our founders were very adamant that rights don't come from man, so therefore man cannot take them away or encumber them. So we saw some horrible action by our State House last couple of years, right? 2024, we saw Mike Day emerge from an 11-stop listening tour. This is the type of listening he did. It's hard to hear when your fingers are so deep in your ears, you can't hear what people are saying, but their mind was already made up. I think it was David Linsky who said they have been working on this legislation for 10 years. So this wasn't something that, all of a sudden Ron Mariano woke up one day and said, we got to modernize our gun laws, and Michael Day is just the guy to do it. No, this has been in the works for a long period of time. And amazingly, after that 11-stop listening tour, a couple of weeks later, they came out with a 140-odd page bill that changed firearms ownership in the state of Massachusetts for everybody. This wasn't just the black rifles. This wasn't just the quote unquote ghost guns or the unserialized frames and receivers, or it wasn't, red flag laws. This was literally everybody, from the Civil War reenactor to the guy who hunts with a muzzleloader to the teenager who has their FID card and how they go hunt with their family, to the non-resident that comes into our state and gives tax revenue to our state every year by hunting sea ducks off our coast here in Massachusetts. This has been a one-sided, death by 1,000 cuts approach for decades in our state that has climaxed to the point where they're not even trying to hide what they are doing anymore. They will come right out and say, we want to ban guns. We don't want you to have them, and they want to take them away. And unfortunately, that is something that has been foisted upon us by people who have no privilege, and you guys all stepped up and said, we're going to do something about it. One of the greatest grassroots efforts to ever happen in our state, certainly in my lifetime, was when 100,000 men and women just like yourself all came together, pens in hand, and said, where do I sign? We're not going to take this one sitting down. We are not your problem. The violent criminals that you let out of jail and repeat offend, they're your problem. And we're done being the whipping boy. We're done being the poster child for everything negative that happens with a firearm in this state, when politicians who refuse to do their job and keep the people of Massachusetts truly safe continue to do their thing. So everybody stood up. They let their name be heard. They put pen to paper, 100,000 people, 5 weeks without a single paid signature gatherer being employed. That's an amazing accomplishment in a state like Massachusetts. So give yourselves a round of applause for that. So now we have a short window to let the rest of the state, who is truly asleep at the wheel through no fault of their own, the media doesn't report on what's truly important, and they need to be woken up, right? We have all suffered from what I call the Stockholm syndrome for long enough. It's time we shake it off and we say, you know what? I'm no longer going to be dictated to people who are so willing to violate their oath of office and take it sitting down any longer. So we have a lot of work to do from now till November 3rd. This is not an election, and I know everyone in this room is probably already committed to voting, but this is not an election we can sit out. We don't have the luxury of staying home. We don't have the luxury of not spreading the word. We don't have the luxury of saying, well, you know what, doesn't matter what I vote anyway. We have something that is so unique and so special. We have a bill or a question on the ballot that is not encumbered by a political party. It is not connected to a politician. It is not, some MAGA candidate or some, whatever, doesn't carry any baggage. It is a straight up or down vote to repeal Chapter 135, and I believe that's why you guys are here tonight, because you believe in that cause, and I thank you. So we have to bring people, we have to spread the word, we have to be vigilant, we have to take that grassroots momentum that happened almost 2 years ago now and bring it all the way to Election Day and make sure we facilitate the change that needs to come. Because Massachusetts has been getting away with infringing upon our rights for far too long. And there's so many people that are suffering under the weight of Chapter 135. You all know, I've talked about it a lot, but that needs to come to an end right now. And we need to make sure that government has the resources they need to go after the people who are truly responsible for violence in our state. So with that, I want to bring up Chris Stone from Gun Owners of America. Why don't you guys give him a big, warm Cape Cod welcome. And thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Very cool moment. I'm so glad we opened with prayer, and I'm a believer in divine providence. I am a Second Amendment advocate, but I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And it was talking earlier, and Pastor Paul came up, and he was introducing himself, and he was saying he'd been a member of GOA since the 80s and involved. And I'm looking at him, and man, you look really familiar, you sound familiar. He knows Eric and Larry. And when we got to talking, we came to realize that he had actually come and spoken at the church I grew up in. And so I met him when I was like probably 10 years old. And here I am. I haven't seen him in literally probably over 30 years. And God has brought us here. And he's uniquely brought everyone here. So I just thought that was an awesome moment. I just want to stop and talk about that. Secondly, while I do work in the firearms industry, I really moonlight as a Sunday school teacher. So if I step behind this pulpit and if people start saying amen, I'll be up here for a while. I won't do that. I really don't want to preach at anyone or talk for a long time. I would love this to just be a time of fellowship and answering questions and talking. And so before I kind of get into what the few things I wanted to cover, I really do want to honestly say how incredible it is what the Civil Rights Coalition, what you all have done, what Toby has done collecting those signatures. I have worked in politics for over 20 years, and I can confidently say I have never in my life heard of anyone gathering over 100,000 signatures without paying people. Most times when you have to collect signatures on the ballot, you're usually paying somewhere between $5 and $10 a signature, and you're only trying to really gather maybe 10 or 15 or 20,000. Can you imagine if you had to pay that to gather that many signatures? The money isn't there. And so seriously, thank you for doing that. I just want to say, and give yourself a round of applause. I'm honestly not saying that to just say that. That is a miracle in and of itself. And building on that grassroots momentum is key. For me, I get to travel all over the country. I'm the director of state affairs for Gun Owners of America. There's a team of about 10 of us in my department. And that's what we do. We cover all 50 states, working with activists like yourself, going to state capitals, working with state legislators, state senators, trying to get involved in elections. And coming to meetings like this is what really gives me energy, right? We always talk about when you go into a state capital, it's like walking into Mordor, right? Especially if you walk into DC, you're walking into Mordor. And you can feel the power of evil on you as you're trying to defeat gun control and deal with all the slimy things that are happening. But seriously, coming into things like this, it gives me energy, it gives me peace, because you get, and I know y'all feel it living up here, you guys get beat down from all the gun control you're living under. I live in Virginia right now. We have off-year elections. We had our elections back in 2025, and we got crushed with a bunch of gun control along with a bunch of other stuff, and we're filing lawsuits and all that good stuff. But really, kind of what I want to talk about kind of is building on that grassroots initiative y'all have really started here. And then how to keep bringing more people into the fight and really bringing in new people to the fight and really bringing in the next generation is incredibly important. You know, Toby and I were talking earlier on his podcast, and we were talking about this idea of what y'all have started here. You know, from our perspective as an organization, I want to come here, I don't have the answers. I'm not from Massachusetts. I don't know the state like you guys. I'm not an expert, but y'all are, and y'all live it. And so for us to be able to come in and say, hey, what can we do reasonably to help? How can we get more people ready to vote? That is key. And continuing this group of people right here, just in this room, if all of us literally go talk to 10 or 15 people that we're unsure of that may not be voting in the election this fall, you now have hundreds of more people that are showing up to the polls. And that is a natural movement that you can build upon and grab people and bring them in. One of the things we were talking about, especially what's cool about this with it being on the ballot, is that it's not tied to a partisan issue. It's not tied to a political party. And you know, even though in my capacity of working at Gun Owners America, all I can really do is talk about gun rights. What's interesting right now, if you look around the dynamic of the United States of America, regardless if you're talking to somebody who's conservative or somebody who's more liberal, the ideas of privacy and the ideas of your personal rights are resonating. And we were talking about how many of you guys know what flock cameras are? You guys have the flock AI cameras here? Yeah. And then how many of you guys are a fan of flock cameras? Yeah, none of us. Well, guess what? I'm not either. And I'm a believer, obviously, in the Second Amendment. But I'm a believer in the entire Bill of Rights, and the state doesn't have the right to use some sort of weird private company that's from a foreign nation to spy on me and collect my facial data. And there's a lot of other people around you here in the state who believe the same thing, but maybe they don't own firearms. And maybe there's a way to approach those people and talk to them and say, hey, you need to turn out to vote on this issue, because if you believe your right to privacy is important, and we can't trust a totalitarian state to collect facial recognition data on you and track your every movement, do you want that same government to restrict your right to keep and bear arms? And so that's a great way to continue reaching people, especially young people. I know it's very kind of funny to go online and look at all the divisions between generations. People talk about baby boomers or Gen X. Actually, everybody forgets about Gen X. Talk about millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha. But there's these major things where we coalesce on, and bringing all of that together is critical. I mean, I'm looking around in this room, I think we probably have all of those generations represented right here in this room, proving we care about it and can continue bringing people into the fight. So that is massively important, and that's something we're really heavily focused on. I know we work a lot with Women for Gun Rights. We're going to be at their big event in September in Washington, D.C., and part of my mission, too, at GOA is to find like-minded organizations to work for you. We pride ourselves in being no compromise. We believe the Second Amendment means what it says: the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And any group that believes that, we will work with 110% of the way. We're doing that in Virginia with a group named Virginia Citizens Defense League. We do it in Texas with a group called Texas Gun Rights. We do it in Arizona with AZCDL. And we're proud to do it up here with Toby and with Goal and with any other group that's aligned. Because, and for the NSA that's listening, I'm going to use this as a political example. If you've ever studied any sort of military history or tactics, you'll come across the term intersecting fields of fire, right? That if you have to attack an enemy or you're in a position, you don't want just one lane of fire, you need multiple angles of fire. The reality is it works the same way in politics. If you want to achieve a goal, you need multiple groups, multiple people, multiple different people from different backgrounds working on the same issue, but from different angles. And so that's something that I would challenge all of us is, are there people are there other groups here in this state that we need to talk to, that we need to approach and say, hey, you have to get involved in this fight. This is a critical thing where the momentum is pushing, where we have all these signatures, the issue's going to be on the ballot. We have to turn out people to vote. We have to motivate them to come to the polls, motivate the right people, and get them to vote correctly. And that's a huge step. And so that's something I'm personally interested in. If you guys know of anyone that my organization needs to talk to, we want to do that 110% of the way. is getting involved in that. The other thing that I think is massively important, and everyone here knows this, is understanding how the anti-gun movement works. We tend to think of, when we think of the anti-gun movement, we think of, Nancy Pelosi, or I guess she's not in office anymore. You think of Chuck Schumer, Every Town for Gun Safety, which is really Every Town for Gun Control. The reality is it's much more broad. It's much more insidious than that. The gun control movement is like a centipede. It has hundreds of feet in all sorts of areas of life, right? If you pull out your phones right now, I have an iPhone. Maybe some people in here have Androids. What do you? Yeah, boo, boo. Yeah, you probably should boo iPhone. And it's a good point. Here's why. You could say, who do you think the Apple Corporation gives money to? Do they give it to people who support gun rights, or do they give it to the anti-gun left? Anti-gun left. Who do you think owns the education system? Who owns Hollywood? Pedophiles, for sure, and the left. What about Target, places we shop? And look, I'm not trying to browbeat people down and be like, you can't live in society. My whole point is we know they have their tentacles and angles into everything. And so as pro-gun Americans, we again have to reach out and support businesses like this gun store right here, support businesses like the Civil Rights Coalition. Use, it's called voting with your wallet, putting money into the hands of people who are going to use it correctly to continue building up and enshrining our rights. Something I always tell people too, I've got 2 young kids. I have a son and a daughter, 12 and 9. And I always tell people, we need to get over the fact we treat the word indoctrination like it's a 4-letter word. Indoctrination is not a 4-letter word in my house. I am indoctrinating my children to be pro-gun. I am indoctrinating my children to be pro-America. I take my kids shooting regularly. I read the Constitution to my children. We have to continue doing that same thing with the next generation, bringing them into the fight and not creating weird arguments between generations. That's what the social media companies want us to do, is get in there and fight one another. I'd rather stand alongside everybody who's with me, regardless of your age, regardless if you're a man, regardless if you're a woman. And to build on that, it is also reaching new demographics. Women are the fastest demographic of new gun owners in the United States of America. I know our organization, we also have a chapter called, I'm going to butcher this, Fuerza 2A. It's Hispanic outreach. We're mostly starting that in Texas and in Florida, where there's a huge Cuban immigrant population. And if you want to meet somebody who cares about gun rights, go talk to a Cuban person. I mean, one of my coworkers, Luis Valdez, his parents were refugees from Cuba. And I won't even tell the story. He could tell it way better. I'm sure it's recorded online. He cannot get through talking about his parents fleeing to America without breaking down into tears. And this is a tough guy who worked in law enforcement for almost 20 years and has chased bad guys. That's a personal fight for him. And so we have to continue that movement and that momentum. And so I'm proud to be here. And like I said, I don't want to stand up here and preach and talk. I'd rather us ask questions or brainstorm ways that we can work on this issue here. What are ways that we can help and support? At GOA, we're a 501c4 nonprofit, and a C3, we have a legal foundation. We're involved in lawsuits regularly. I work for the C4. I'm a dirty lobbyist, but I don't get paid like trust me, I flew economy here. I drive a used car. I don't get paid like a DC lobbyist. We take very seriously the donors' money that they give us to 100% fight for the Second Amendment. We also have a political victory fund that's dedicated to electioneering work to help people who are running for public office. That's a huge thing. I know we've got individuals here who are running for public office, even in states, and this is huge. I said I wouldn't talk long, but I'm going to keep going because I'm getting fired up now. Even in states like Massachusetts, where we can look and go, the political reality is anti-gun leftists, anti-gun Democrats control the state from the top down. That's true. But victory breeds victory. And sometimes the first win you got to get is very small. So even if it means clawing back one seat where doesn't really change the outcome, you're not going to get a bill passed, it encourages people. And then you win the next seat. And you find a city council person to support, and you get that going. I don't know if you guys elect sheriffs here. Do you guys vote for sheriff here in Massachusetts? Yeah. That is massively huge. That's something I know our organization is trying to get way more involved if. We are personally dealing with it in Virginia with our Commonwealth's attorneys and sheriffs. There have been a couple sheriffs who stood up and very clearly said, we will not enforce one single word of gun control. There's been a lot of sheriffs who are silent. And I can tell you someone, I lived in Colorado for about a decade, and I actually moved out there. Well, I don't want to incriminate myself on camera right now. I didn't bring anything illegal with me when I moved out there, but when I moved out there after they had passed their magazine ban, right? If you look at that state, most of it is red. Most of it's solidly pro-gun. It's really only Denver and Boulder and a little bit of Fort Collins that kind of controls the whole state where the population centers are. If you left those counties and went to any other county where there is a pro-gun sheriff who is in office, you could walk into any gun store and buy a 30-round magazine. Because the sheriff stood up and said, we do not care, we will not enforce this. They adopted that true belief in the doctrine of lesser magistrates that say we have a constitutional duty to not enforce this law. And so that's another thing I think we should all be passionate in enforcing and trying to win is I know we look forward to big wins, and big wins are great. I'm sure we're all excited about the court taking up the Viramontes case. So I was just talking about that earlier, the assault weapons ban case. That could be a huge win for us nationwide, and we should be fired up about that. But you got to get the small wins to encourage people step by step, because if we all flee states, if I flee Virginia, if you guys flee Massachusetts, the left isn't stopping. Yeah, they look at this as kind of their stronghold. Okay, they got it. But if you don't think they're going to come for other states, if you don't think they're going to come for quote unquote strongholds, go talk to people who live in Texas right now. Go look at the polling in Texas for United States Senate race. It's wildly close. One of the biggest states in the country population-wise may have a radical anti-gun person become a United States Senator. They're coming. Look at what they're trying to do in Pennsylvania. They're on razor-thin margins, another huge state that has massive implications for presidential races with electoral college votes. That's a razor-thin margin where they're trying to flip it. And so I'm encouraged. I want to just again say thank you for having me here. That's really all I wanted to cover, but I'd be glad to try and answer any questions, or if Toby, you want to come up here and we can ping pong it, or if we just want to break and just have fellowship and chat and brainstorm and hang out.
Well, I appreciate the fact that, and if you have questions for Chris, by all means, shout them out. God bless you. The one thing I would kind of piggyback on that is exactly what he said. You know, we have sent notice to all 11 district attorneys in our state. The Civil Rights Coalition has sent them notice. Number one, kind of putting them on notice that the enforcement of Chapter 135 is very questionable, and you should tread lightly. Number two, we want to know where they stand. Are they going to dedicate government and state and taxpayer dollars to prosecute technical violations of this unconstitutional law against good people, or are they going to use those resources the state has entrusted them with to prosecute violent career criminals and make sure that they go to jail? We put them on notice a couple of weeks ago. Attorney Dan Hagan sent that letter on behalf of the Civil Rights Coalition. We're still waiting on a reply. We sent it certified. We know they got every one of them except for one. You know, I guess there was a location change, so we had to resend another one. But this is a very strategic thing for us. We want to put them on notice and also find out where they stand on that. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there along the lines of what Chris was talking about. And last but not least, I want to thank Brian Shortsleeve and Sean Oliver, who are running for governor, for finding the Second Amendment so important that they come to Cape Gunworks on a Wednesday night to be with you guys. So make sure you say hi to them as well. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming out. And, yeah, my pleasure. And Brian was on my podcast, by the way. So if you want to know where he stands on the Second Amendment, you can go on Rumble, because YouTube kicked me off, the bunch of commie suckers that they are. And you can watch the replay of Brian Shortsleeve on my Rapid Fire radio show and hear all about that. But I will open it up for questions if anyone has it. Any questions for Chris? We got a gentleman right here. Sure.
Yeah, but one of the most concerning aspects of 135, to me anyway, because of the historical implications of gun registration, and not just overseas, but right here in this country. What are we planning to do in terms of a response to that? It seems to me that the Massachusetts groups, Civil Rights Coalition, GOAL, Commonwealth 2A, really ought to be on the same page in just announcing publicly, we will not comply. We have, for generations now, complied with every one of these laws that's come down the book, down the path, grudgingly, albeit, but we've complied, one after the other, but they tighten the noose. At some point, we have to serve notice on them somehow that it's going to stop. They can't put us all in prison.
Amen to that. Real quick before Chris answers you, what we're going to do is we're going to win on November 3rd and repeal this horrible law. But go ahead.
No, it's a honestly super valid question. And look, I can't stand up here and give anybody legal advice to put yourself into jeopardy, but this is where I would really return to the point of this is why you need to show up and talk to your elected sheriffs and your elected Commonwealth. In Virginia, we call them Commonwealth attorneys. I apologize, I don't know what they're called here in Massachusetts. Or your state police. They are the chief law enforcement officers. They are the enforcement mechanism of those laws. And you're right, if as a group we can have a unified front and say mass non-compliance will take place, and we're going to hold elected officials accountable who raise their right hand and take an oath to the Constitution and swear before God. Hopefully you still put your hand on the Bible in this state. I know sometimes Virginia, I don't think they have to, which is a crying shame. And literally say, you made an oath before Jesus Christ himself on the word of God that you would protect my rights. And so that is ultimately what we have to do is get a coalition of people who stand together. And I know as an organization, that's ultimately what we're going to come down to in Virginia, where we're dealing with these lawsuits that we've filed on. We've been granted a temporary injunction, yet there's still problems with dealers processing sales because of ATF regulations with the federal government. And so it is important for us to have a unified front in that issue.
Mm-hmm. Good answer.
Yep.
Anybody else have any? Yeah.
The question for you, Toby.
Yeah.
Is there anyone running against Rob Gallimore?
I don't know. Does anyone know if anyone's running against?
There's a Democratic primary.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There is a Democratic primary. Who is it?
GRD knows his last name.
Is he the restaurant guy?
He stands on the Second Amendment.
No?
But he was in the DA's office under Michael O'Keefe when he helped Dan Higgins with his campaign in the last race. I don't know where he stands on the Second Amendment.
Good question.
Say so.
We should know.
Well, and that, just to add on to that, that's helpful for us, like you mentioning that. That's a situation where we as an organization can come in and survey candidates like this and try and get them on the record and say, hey, fill out a survey, tell your constituents what you believe. And if you don't fill out a survey, we're going to tell people you didn't. Why did you duck filling out the most basic questions on defending the Second Amendment? And that is a way to hold people accountable. It also, and this is something that's important too, obviously we have different people in here running for public office. Not everyone wants to run for public office, but maybe you know somebody who should run for public office. Candidate recruitment is a huge thing if I'm going to say our side, if I'm going to be somewhat partisan, even though our organization is nonpartisan, we criticize Republicans a lot more than I wish we had to. Finding good people to run for office is critical. So if you know of districts here, especially again at the local level, where the margins are thin and all you need is somebody to stand up and challenge an incumbent, that's huge for us, where we can try and come in and help with that 100%.
Very good.
Not a question, but it's more of a statement. So I think really at this point, because there's a lot of questions like, what can we do going forward? It's have that conversation with anybody and everybody and let them know, did you know that we can repeal this on November 3rd? Because there's a lot of gun owners that still do not know about Chapter 135. It blows my mind. And, you know, because we don't want to be bothered, right? We just want to go and have fun and shoot and do whatever we want to do because we're law-abiding gun owners. But they need to know because we need their help. So having that conversation with anybody, this is a civil rights issue. Because if they're going to take one away, what else are they going to take away? What else are they going to chip at? So it's just having that conversation with anybody. And I agree. I'm actually on the fence to whether or not I'm going to run for my town for selectman. I want change, and everybody thinks I'm crazy, so I'm on the fence. So.
We also, we should be a group that is taken very seriously because there's 600,000 gun owners in the state of Massachusetts. If every single one of us went and voted, that's 25% of the people that show up to vote every election, or a serious percentage of the people. Imagine if like the Beacon Hill had to pay attention to us because no one stayed home on election day. Think of the up ballot vote that would help people who do throw their hat into the ring. And also, it would give them pause to say, you know what, I might not get my job back if I do something really stupid because they're going to primary me or run against me and I'm going to be out of a job. And I hope that's the message that is sent this fall more than anything, is like, we're not going to reward bad behavior anymore. It's time to go home and spend more time with your family if you want to infringe on our rights and take our rights away. That's what you get to go do.
It's so important too because we have a question, but we have a chance to vote these. I almost swore these people out that are against us. Because if we don't vote them out and we do win, which we are going to win, we're going to repeal Chapter 135. But these monkey heads are still in office. Can you imagine the fight that we're going to have to fight with again? So it's so important to vote these people out.
All right, so what I'd like to do, if you guys are good with questions, if you have more questions, throw them up. But we could break and just kind of everyone get together and, you know, shake hands and kiss babies, and we'll all get to know each other and what you're running for and what you're doing. I'm sure. Yes.
Just really quick.
Yeah.
It's really simple. Just tell all your Democrat friends to vote no on guns. That's it.
That's right. No more guns. Vote no.
That's a good one.
Quick question to the coalition.
Yeah.
Maybe the gun owners in America. We have a list of states from FRB of every FFL in the state.
Yeah.
Has anything been sent to us, like a letter from the coalition to each and every FFL asking to go through their personal email list, maybe not to show everybody else all things close to the chest, but get a fact, you know, just a punch list of points and facts, and say, can you please send us everyone that's done a transaction with you for the last 2 years?
Yep.
We need to get the word out. And there'll be overlap because people go there.
Ironically, that list has been harder to come by than we expected, but we have the FFLs. We have a current list of about 100 FFLs that are getting an email in the next couple days. And we have another group of people mining out the next 100 emails of FFLs. So we'll end up reaching a couple hundred. I think there's 300 in the state, but 100 of them aren't even active. They're just kind of kitchen table FFLs. And I think out of gun stores, there's probably less than 100. But so that's a great point. But and we've also sent out every, you know, man, woman, and child that's on our subscription list. I know GOA put out an email, and that's one of the things we're actually mining. Some of the other groups like NRA, ILA is going to send out emails on behalf of us and whatnot. So, and MCA has done that, and the sportsmen's clubs and everyone else. So that's on the horizon. So.
It's a great point. We had to do a lot of that in Virginia this year, was going to gun stores and
600,000 and we're not reaching. That's why I'm trying to get, if every FFL has their individual list and they can try and get.
And guys, on the way out, you don't have to leave. There's plenty of food and refreshments, but I want everyone to grab a Boston broadside because there's an article in there by the Civil Rights Coalition. John Mawhinney wrote an article for the Boston broadside, which will be helpful. A couple talking points. Grab one of those, grab some stuff off the table, a bag. You can take it to Target or Whole Foods and the Civil Rights Coalition right on the side. So make sure you help yourself and feel free to mill around the cabin and we'll get to know each other.